What's up, guys? I got an exciting video today. Today we're going to break down how to keep and care for Panda Loaches. So in front here I have a nice little pack. I don't want to say school because I don't think these guys school. I think they actually just kind of shoal pack. They're not the normal fish that swim in mid-water. So I don't know if you would call them schooling fish, but you know, they're kind of just a little pack of wolves almost. So this is how to take care of Panda Loaches. If you're considering getting Panda Loaches, if you are thinking about it, or you already have some, maybe you already know this, maybe you get some information out of this. But I've kept these guys for about a year now. Most people don't keep them that long. They lose the pattern and they kind of get rid of them, or they kind of get bored or whatever. I'm sticking in there for now. The point is to try to breed them, but we'll see what happens with time. So first things first, these guys are found in southern China naturally, in some small tributaries, like kind of like a streams. So they are subtropical. They need colder water, kind of the same thing like a hill stream loach would need, but these guys might even be able to tolerate a little bit colder. I know some people put hill stream loaches in like warmer tanks. Not sure if you want to do that. I wouldn't suggest doing that with these guys. These guys really want to be in cold water. Anywhere from like 65 Fahrenheit all the way up to maybe 74, 75 is probably stretching it. Higher levels of temperature, you want them to just be temporarily, like the summer, not actually like you're gonna always keep it at that. You might end up killing them off earlier than they would normally survive. So, you know, keep that in mind. Like I said, cold water. Basically, here with me, I don't need a heater at all because of that. They stay at during the fall and the winter, they're at about 68 to 70 degrees Fahrenheit. Right now, during the summer just started, they're up there at 72, 74-ish. But like I said, it's going to be temporary for them, so I'm kind of okay with that. That being said, because of temperatures, you're going to want to make sure you pick and choose what other fish you want to keep with them. These guys have been people talk about how you can keep these guys with shrimp. They're shrimp safe. It's true, they are shrimp safe. You can have shrimps with these guys. Only thing is, you know, shrimps will need some kind of a harder water. These guys, they don't really tend to mind hard water. I think you want to keep them in the pH anywhere like around, I think probably 6.8 to probably like 7.4 ish. That's a good area. I keep mine at around 7 ish. Yeah, 7 is probably where I keep mine at. And that's only because I do a little bit of hardness for my neocaradinas I have in here. And otherwise I would have it just RO water, which I've heard a lot of people do, they keep these guys with just RO water. Probably do okay with that. A lot of people do that actually. I'm doing semi-hard. Temperature, we talked about. So diet, these guys are algae grazers, right? Algae eaters. I'm not too sure if they actually eat algae or if they're just picking the food off of algae, like microorganisms and stuff like that. But they are constantly grazing. So it's almost like, the way I can describe it is, their appetite is like of a autocyclist. They are always going, always just chowing down. Now, they don't clean your tank like an autocyclist would, but they do the same kind of amount of grazing almost. So it's kind of like they actually are just looking for biofilm, versus like an auto will actually eat the brown algae. So I haven't had these guys in brown algae conditions, so I wouldn't know. I mostly let things like hair algae and green algae grow, and they tend to just kind of graze on it and not really actually eat it. So there's that. I keep them on a staple diet of hikari algae pellets and rapashi soylent green. I've had good luck with that. They chow down and they eat it. They have, like I said, big appetites. When they're not eating, they are grazing, and when they're not grazing, they're eating basically. So keep in mind, you're going to want to do a strict vegetarian diet for them, algae-based diet. You don't want to, I wouldn't suggest keeping these guys with other fish that inhabit the bottom of the tank, unless you have a big enough tank. So in this tank, I only have Panda Loaches in the bottom and shrimp, and the Panda Loaches take up all the space. So the shrimp are almost they basically avoid the loaches because the loaches are they're pretty explosive sometimes. So behavioral wise, they these panda loaches tend to all of a sudden explode into full speed, and then they stop, and then they chase each other, and they're always doing something. You can kind of see them on the video. They're always doing, and they even get crazier when they smell food. When food gets dropped into the tank, they go berserk. So things like Corys and stuff like that are a little more mild mannered, they might be a little thrown off by this, but you know, you can keep them together, but you want to make sure that the Corys that you're keeping can handle the temperature you're having them in, and can also handle the energy coming off of these panda loaches. So keep in mind. I have though, however, seen people keep panda loaches with other loaches like hillstream loaches or serpent loaches, stuff like that, Stifodin, gobies, all those, and because they're all kind of hillstreamish, and they're fine as long as you have enough of a rock pile or stuff like that, big enough tank so that they can actually avoid each other. Not that they will avoid each other, but they kind of get out of each other's way. I also suggest getting, at least for panda loaches, getting more of a rock structure. They do like to go in and out of rocks. In their natural habitat, they mainly have big boulders and stuff like that. It's a stream again, so they don't encounter too much vegetation. And also, let's get into this too. I've discovered, well, at least I've figured out in my experience, there's no hard evidence, but whenever I let nitrates go up to about 40 ppm, the loaches get bothered, physically bothered. I can visually see them get distressed and or sometimes start doing like a flicking motion, almost like if they had ick or something. Now, not to be confused with what this guy's doing right here on the left. This guy is battling hair algae right now, and that's my bad. I need to get that out of there. There's Java moss is growing, but they'll do a thing where they'll kind of scrape on the rocks and stuff, and that a lot of times I've seen only happens when I'm dosing ferts and I let nitrates get to 40 ppm or higher, or around that area. So it makes sense, because in streams and stuff like that, there's not much vegetation because the water's being changed so fast that not much can grow besides algae. So they're not naturally, it would make sense, they're not used to nitrates. So I would, if you want to keep them in a planted tank, I would keep them in a planted tank that has low nitrates, which is kind of hard. That's why I only have fast growing plants in here, and most of the time the plants are kind of surviving off of fish waste and naturally occurring nitrates instead of me actually fertilizing. So want to keep that in mind. If you are going to keep plants, you have to be okay with them not being fertilized and stuff like that constantly, because you want to do a lot of water changes with these guys. Maybe once a week, if not more if possible. So we discussed that. Temperature, like I said, you want to keep rocks. They're used to rocks. I don't believe they come across a lot of wood and stuff like that. They might come across a branch that fell in the water and stuff like that, but it's not like the Amazon River where they're just like, you know, roots growing and stuff like that. It's probably more than likely that they're just coming across a lot of rocks more than they come around wood or like a giant bush of like plants. But it could be. I just don't think it's as natural. I've seen pictures of where they collected, and it's basically just like a riverbed. You know, it's just rocks and a stream going through. Like, you know, it's not much. So I think also, from what I've heard, hillstream loaches, the way they lay eggs, not these guys, when they breed, when they spawn, they let the eggs go and they fall in between the cracks of like rocks. So it would make sense that these guys would be similar, right? Because they evolved in similar conditions. So I would think that a giant rock pile would probably encourage breeding. And well, that brings us to the next point. With these guys, they're kind of hard to come across. It's probably why you haven't seen them a lot. They're not. A lot of people aren't able to go in there and collect them anymore. So we want to start breeding them in the hobby so that we don't have to go out and collect them. They're only found in like 2 streams in southern China, and even then, I guess they're like, it's kind of troublesome getting in there to get them out. So it's one of those things where we kind of want to race against the clock and see if we can, you know, aquaculture these guys before we're not able to go get them anymore, or they run out or whatever, you know. So it's one of those species where you kind of want to get into it, get a good amount of them, and start seeing if you can get them to breed. Which is why I would stick to more of a natural like biotope kind of thing. So another thing is these are behavioral. Their behavior, right, is more of a social. They're more of a social fish, is what I'm trying to say. You can keep one or two, I guess, but I've seen them do better in like groups of like 4, 5, 6. I have 6 here. I at one point had one only, and it did fine. It did fine for about 4 or 5 months, and it was fine. But when I added the other 5, is when they really took off. As far as like, just they were something to look at now. Where before he was just sitting there and not doing much. Now they kind of go in and out. They do blah blah blah. They do this and that. I've even seen something that looks like something that looked like mating behavior. Now I wasn't sure, and then I messed up and I changed their tag, so I wasn't able to. I don't know. It didn't lead to anything, but there was some behavior, right, that looked like mating, and that only happens when you get a good amount of them. So let's talk about pricing. Pricing for these guys are anywhere from $15 to about $25, $30 each. And that's if you get them locally, right? Because if you get them online, you'll be paying that per specimen and then paying for shipping. So, and then again, you want to get more than one if possible. Maybe even at least 3, I would say, 3 or 4. So they can get pretty pricey. So hopefully this video would help you understand like what you need to get them to survive. So yeah, so we talked about temperature, water conditions, 6.5 to 7.5 ish. It is said that they can handle many different levels of hardness, so don't have to worry about that. They will eat like fish food, they eat bug bites with me, but it's mostly because it happens to fall on the ground and they eat it. But they should be fed more of like algae pellets and, like I said, ratatouille, stone and green, stuff like that. More cucumbers, stuff like more like a pleco would than a regular like a guppy or something like that. And reproduction. So nobody knows how they reproduce yet. Nobody knows how to get them to do it. They don't know the conditions. There's not many people writing about it. So go out there and try to figure it out yourself. You can't. That's what I was trying to do for a while, and I'm still doing. So if you find out, it's, you know, let us know. Comment in the comment if you can on this video if you have had Panda Loaches breed with you. That's awesome. I've seen a few people on YouTube post about them years ago, like, hey, I found a baby, but nobody asked them like, hey, what was the parameters? Well, was it like low water, or did you, you know, what was it? Did you feed bloodworms? Is that what they started? You know, nobody really knows how to prime them to get them to breed. Also, with Panda Loaches, they do a weird thing where when you first get them when they're juvenile and babies, the reason why they're called Panda Loaches is because their colors are that of a panda bear, right? White and black stripes, really nice. As they grow into the juvenile state, they lose that and they get more of a weird wavy pattern, more of a stripy pattern, and then they end up like this, where it's more of a leopard print pattern, right? Like if somebody called this a leopard loach, I'd be like, wow, cool. But these are still Panda Loaches, so they lose the pattern later on, and they become more of this, basically to camouflage with rocks a little better. So don't be surprised if you get Panda Loaches and then they stop losing that pattern they have. They even almost turn dull, almost yellowish brown in the middle of their juvenile state, and then they end up at this point. So right before this, maybe like a month ago, they were more yellowish and discolored. They almost looked ill, but that's just their natural state from my experience. That's just how they get to the next stage of more of a darker blotchy pattern. So keep that in mind. They don't always stay as pretty, but I think they look nicer like this. They look really cool. Also, it's almost like having 2 fish. You first get a Panda Loach, it looks cute, colorful, and then you get this guy that looks aggressive and kind of more camouflaging. Still pretty awesome to me. So there you go, guys. That's a little tidbits of how to keep them. A few tips I can share is try to get some Soylent Green or something like that. That way you can have more algae, more food, easier, cheaper, and just a little bit more higher quality. One of those bottles will last you a long time. One of those Apache bottles. I also use a shrimp feeding tube to keep food kind of in one place, because like algae eaters or cories or anything else like that that's on the bottom, when they try to eat food, they push away the food in accident, right? Because they're trying to eat it. But in a dish like this, what you see right here is kind of dirty. The food has nowhere to go as they're trying to eat it, so they do a better job of eating, and they won't spread the food around and lose it in the rocks or something like that. So that's kind of a little tip. Also, if there's any excess food left over, you can then just remove it from the dish. So I use dishes like that to feed them, or like I said, you could just feed them a cucumber or something like that and take away the cucumber later on. But yeah, guys, so that's what I got for now. They also seem to really like those pleco caves. I had them for a while. They just don't look as appealing. That's why I didn't do it. I might have maybe gotten some actual breeding going on by now if I would have used pleco caves, but I went with rocks instead. So you know, everybody can see what they can do with that, and maybe you want to do a whole tank of just pleco caves, right? And throw in a bunch of Panda Loaches. That might actually work. You know, for all we know, that might be the key. But yeah, guys, comment if you have any experience with these guys. Let me know what you think. If I forgot anything, comment on the section below. Maybe you can add some of your own tidbits. So like the video if you can, subscribe to my channel if you can, hit the bell to get notified whenever I post up one of my videos. And thanks, guys. Have a good one.